at the time there were really I had no idea that there were any such things out there, and all my role models for it were based on sort of industrial manufacturing and agriculture. And those were the things that excited me the most. I was like, this is so great. We are going to do music the way people do grain. Because the way people do music typically, to me, was pretty repulsive. So I was like, let's fuck that shit. We're going to just do it like it's corn. Because the way people do music is disgusting. So we'll just skip their whole deal. Yeah, so we incorporated it as a workers' co-op, and it took a long time because in between deciding to do that and actually getting around to doing it, we as a group encountered all kinds of other challenges. Like within that time frame, we put out the first Final Fantasy record, which was something that as a person myself, who was pretty much the only person in charge or doing anything on a regular basis at Blocks, other than Lisa Graham, who was also doing a lot of work at Blocks at the time. We were just not prepared for that at all. That was like, even though initially success was quite modest, it was still way more successful than anything else we had previously experienced. And it was ruinous to my personal life for a couple months, just because the decisions that I made initially.
No relationship.
Yeah, we didn't talk for a while. But it was just the kind of thing where like I was really unprepared I really did not understand what was happening at all. Decisions that were made in haste and would later have to be backtracked from almost entirely, for the most part, lots of them. And to be fair, the whole project happened so quickly that there was really no time to make considered decision making at all. The record was recorded and more or less released within 12 days total, the first Final Fantasy record.
We started recording on December 26th, and then we started selling copies on January 9th.
Yeah. So that's fucked. that's really fast. That's the kind of thing that yeah.
It's not that fast. Comparatively, like a lot of people make records that fast.
Till they're selling them?
No, that's true.
A lot of people record records really fast. That's true. I only record records really fast. The only time I've spent longer than like 2 days of actual recording time making a record was when I was in like other people's bands, and the decisions got made other ways and records got made differently. But whenever I'm in charge of recording, it goes really fast.
The blanket is taking you forever.
Yeah, but that's because I didn't do any of it. Like I didn't work on it for 2 years in between. And then my new Blanket records got 4 songs on it. It took me 4 years, start to finish. But it wasn't like I worked at it for 4 years. It's like I worked on it once in 2003, and then once again in 2005, and then a couple times in 2006, and then it was done. But
when we can sort of backtrack a bit in that point in the story, because that kind of spiraling out of control feeling is a little bit of the story of Final Fantasy overall, and I maybe we could talk a little bit about how it got started and then what happened.
Well, I just had the idea that I could do a looping project with the violin, and then I played a show. And then people kept asking me to play all these benefits over the course of a year, and then I hooked up with Stuart McLean, Violin Cafe Tour, and then I did that, and I had to get a record because I could have something to sell. And then Leon and I made it quickly, and then I was invited to go on Arcade Fire Tour, and then we sold a whole lot of copies. And then I sent a copy to Tom Lab and asked them if they would put it out in Europe, and then they did, and I went over there and sold some more copies. It's a pretty uneventful story. It's kind of like, but when you think about it though, I mean, even though it does sound kind of like cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect, it's a pretty different story from like, well, we demoed the record, then we got a publicist, and then we, got a booking agent, all this sort of stuff. Like, I'm still unmanaged. Like, I have a booking agent, Stephen Himmelfarb, who takes care of like a lot of managerial tasks, but I mean, I'm still pretty much, trying to only deal with these sort of, like, hold on to as much, like, of a non-professional musician's lifestyle as I can.
I mean, to an extent as well, lots of what's happened, you negotiated through friendships, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's not like you got put on the Arcade Fire tour because people did some brilliant backroom moves for you. It's because, like, pals were like, do you want to go on tour? It's like, that's exactly how, like the shows I played with the Gossip in the Barcelona Pavilion years ago, that was all just because it was friends, you know what I mean? It wasn't because anyone hooked it up, but they were like, do you want to come play in Winnipeg with us? And I being born and raised in Toronto, was like, Winnipeg is only one province over. And then we were like, and then Maggie, who is far more aware of how big Canada is, was like, that was so stupid, why did you say yes? And I was like, it's the Gossip, and yeah, anyway. That's when Katie was still in the band. It's because CDs are really cheap to manufacture compared to other things, and also, I mean, in some cases and in some communities you can sell lots of vinyl, but in other situations you really can't. And like a store like Soundscapes doesn't sell vinyl at all hardly. Like there's 4 records there, I think, and it's like some channels of distribution deal with vinyl very well, and some channels don't. So it's always been like a formal compromise that we put out CDs because they're fucking ugly. And they're a really degenerate form of object. Like if you're going to make an object to sell, choosing to make CDs as the object you sell is kind of like saying like, we sell turds, or something like turds available here. And it's not it's a really low object and it's really unpleasant. But their cheapness as a means of making physical forms of distributable music mean that we can put out more stuff. So there's a compromise between like the volume of material we want to put out and how we want that material to be out, or how we want those objects that contain that material to be in the end. That's a necessary compromise, because otherwise we'd only be able to put in a fraction of the stuff we do. And I think all the records we've put out are pretty important, and I wouldn't want to slice any of them off in exchange for switching formats or something. But in general, like, it's just so frustrating. Like the music industry decided in the late 80s that everything was going to become digital, and by so doing, they sort of, like digital media is something where you just have a computer that describes the sound that came into it through the AD converter to a certain depth, to a certain level. It's not actually the thing itself, it's a conversation within the computer about what that thing it just saw was. Like something went by, what was it like? Was it big, was it small, that kind of thing. And it just describes the waveform that's produced. And that can be, and that dialogue that is the digital thing, the information, is not inherent to any shape. It doesn't inhere in any object. It is just that information, which is quite different from, say, like the way a record works or the way magnetic tape works, where physically that thing is inscribed in that object and belongs in that object physically. So that information being ultimately portable, and the decision to make digital, like portable, dialogical, discursive, to switch to an exclusively discursive medium in the late 80s, means that basically that information could live anywhere. And so the fact that it does now live anywhere and is accessible through any of the channels we have to access information like that is just like a natural outcome of that decision. As a workers' co-op, really it doesn't matter to us at all what the future of CDs are. We make CDs right now, but we're not a business whose livelihood is producing CDs and selling them. What we are is a group of musicians who produce CDs because we need them. Because it's really useful to have something to sell when you're on tour. It's useful to have something that represents you in places where you can't be, so that when you want to go to that place, people know your name and people come to your show and you can make new friends and find places to sleep and learn where the good restaurants are and not get food poisoning and not get lost and have friends and that kind of stuff. That's the really important part about doing music socially. So that's why you should make CDs if you're a musician, really. Because chances, yeah. Well, and to be fair, the majority of the people on blocks aren't making CDs to make piles of cash off of them either. I mean, like, you have to make an awful lot of CDs, sell an awful lot of CDs to get anywhere near making any kind of money. And so like the couple $100 that come in to some people a year is like a nice treat. It's like a drinks on me kind of situation. But at the same time, what else that gives you is, yeah, it gives you these opportunities to travel and see and do new things. And in rare cases, yeah, you can actually live off the returns from selling CDs. But it's far from being the common way that works. So, I mean, we're not so hung up on actual CDs themselves. If people don't, if as a cooperative we decide that it's no longer useful to make CDs, it's instead useful to play contract bridge or something like that, we'll do that instead. I mean, it's a democracy. We can vote on it. If it doesn't make any sense at all to manufacture CDs anymore, then we won't. And it doesn't affect us at all because we're a group of people. We're not a business oriented and towards producing one product.